The Samsung Z Fold2 is Samsung's second but technically third attempt at a folding phone, and this is my fifth video for this phone. There is a Z Fold 4, but who needs it when the Z Fold 2 still holds up almost 3 years after it was launched? But what's it like using the phone in 2023? Let's find out. Hello everyone, this is Matt from Real World Review, and yes, I still have the Z Fold 3, but today we're going to be talking about the Z Fold 2, which is technically really similar in used pricing, but either way, let's get started. First of all, this is a folding phone. I say that to remind you that opening up landscape would make it a fold, while portrait opening would make it a flip, just like the good old flip phones. But when you close the phone, this phone feels like a tank. We get a tall, narrow, and technically flat 6.2-inch 2260 by 816 OLED display that runs at 60 Hz. So almost 1080p, but surprisingly feels small thanks to that awkward space and technically huge glass and metal bezels all around. It gets fairly bright at about 700-ish nits, which matches nicely with the inside screen. There is a hole punch for the front camera, which will be talked about later, but it's pretty much identical to the one that's inside. Around the phone, we get a nice matte metal that has some ridges to it. This goes around the phone until you get to the left side, which is a shiny metal hinge that says Samsung. On the top, we get a microphone and a large area for that loudspeaker, while the right side has the volume and power buttons, the latter that doubles as a fingerprint scanner. And yes, you can set it to always on. Let Linus know that. There's also a SIM tray, but this phone does support eSIM. Then on the bottom we get another loudspeaker, which gives us an equal stereo feel, another microphone, and the USB-C 3.1 port. This allows for 25 watts of wired charging, which is actually plenty fast in real usage. Moving to the back, we get Gorilla Glass 6. I do have a skin on there, that's why it's not shiny glass. And then there's a little area for the 3 cameras and the camera flash. There's also a microphone hidden in this camera bump on the side, which is pretty smart. One thing to note is that glass can break, and that the front is actually Gorilla Glass Victus, even though I have seen the front one break more often than the back one. As you can see, this phone is pretty tall and heavy at 282 grams. It becomes very noticeable when you're using it one-handed. Now we can open up the phone and see that everything inside is plastic. Starting with the trim around the screen, which is plastic, and then going to the screen, which is also plastic, even if Samsung advertises ultra-thin glass. That doesn't really matter because everything that you touch on here will be plastic. As for the display, it's a clearly flexible 7.6-inch OLED panel at 2208 by 1768, so almost a 2K display with the pixel density from a 1080p display. The nice thing is that the screen is a 120Hz panel, meaning that the outer screen is the appetizer, while the inside screen is the main course. There is an offset hole punch for the camera, like I said, and an obvious crease that isn't too bad once you get used to it. Trust me, you will get used to it and really only see it when it's off axis or in super bright situations. You'll also find that you won't really feel it that much unless you turn the phone sideways. As for the folding mechanism, it's pretty stiff and can hold at 45 degrees or higher, though leaving this on the table may cause the phone to not be super still, especially if the camera is on the top area. One-handed opening is possible, but definitely not fun or recommended. The funniest part about this phone, to me, is like owning a car and a truck. When given the option, you'll end up actually finding yourself using the smaller outer screen as opposed to the bigger inside screen. And no, it's not going to help your eyesight, but I do notice that the inside screen font is slightly larger. While I would say that the outside is premium, so is the inside. To start, we get the Snapdragon 865 Plus chip with 12GB of RAM and 256GB of UFS 3.1 storage. All which are old, let's be honest, but still hold up very well almost 3 years later. Gaming on this is a treat, of course, only when you have the phone open. The phone does get warm, but that only happens where the cameras are. So if you're holding on the bottom part of the phone, you might not even feel the heat. To power all this, we get dual cells that add up to 4,500 milliamps. Normally this is where I would say that the battery life actually isn't that bad, which it really isn't, but a used version of this phone may be getting close to needing the batteries to be replaced. And yes, batteries. Still, my phone lasts through the day, but mine does have about a year of usage on it. So expect 3 to 5 hours of screen on time, and ironically, I don't see any difference in battery life when you use the inside screen versus the outer screen. To charge the phone, we get 25 watts of wired charging, apparently 11 watts of wireless charging, and even reverse wireless charging, so you can charge up other phones, but probably just headphones. Even with those numbers, charging this phone does end up being fairly fast. We do get Android 13 for the operating system, which is fine. It feels like Android 12, but slightly better. The disappointment that has all but to be confirmed is that Android 14 may not reach this phone. It will most likely appear on the Samsung A13, which is literally half the performance of this phone, but most likely won't reach the Z Fold2, marking only 3 years of software updates. This is on par with what happened to the original Galaxy Fold being stuck on Android 12, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. I mean, we do have all these good specs, Wi-Fi 6 support, Bluetooth 5.0, millimeter wave 5G, and real stereo speakers. I mean, what more can you ask out of a phone that was $2,000 new? I mean, sure, a headset jack, SD card slot, and water resistance, but this is a premium device after all. Continuing with those downsides, let's talk about the cameras. The front ones are identical, being 10 megapixel fixed focus sensors that take decent photos as well as 4K 60 frames per second videos. But with this button, we can switch to the rear cameras for higher quality selfies, thanks to the focusing sensors and optical image stabilization. Of course, all the rear sensors are 12 megapixel, one being a 2x telephoto, another being a standard wide, both optically stabilized, while the last sensor is an ultra-wide camera that is not focusable, so no macro shots. 4K 60 frames per second video only seems to come out on the standard wide sensor, but it looks good. And that's what you would expect out of pretty much every shot that you get on this phone. Good. Nowadays, we can stick a 48 megapixel or higher sensor and get a 2x optical zoom, so having a dedicated 2x camera as opposed to having a 3x camera is kind of disappointing. But still, this camera is very usable and way better than any budget phones out there, even today. It should be obvious that this is a flagship phone from late 2020, so it's gonna be a good phone. Sure, the cameras aren't Samsung Ultra level and the screen setup isn't as wide as I would like, but at the end of the day, I absolutely love owning this phone. The ability to carry 2 devices in one is exactly what people want. This is the idea behind gaming laptops, the Nintendo Switch, and phones in general, or at least the ones with a good processor and camera. You get the ability to carry around a normal Samsung phone with the things that you would expect, like amazing build quality, good cameras, and an operating system that just works. And when you open it up, sure, it isn't a huge tablet, but it's a device larger than a phone that you can fit back into your pocket. Or you can do what I do and rarely open up the phone and eventually collect dust and pocket lint on the inside screen. But let's be honest, you do have to qualify for this phone. I hear people ask if the phone is fragile or say that they would break the screen so easily, and to those people, no, don't buy this phone. If you don't want to take care of your products and money is important to you, don't spend a bunch of money on phones because they're all going to be fragile, whether it's glass or plastic. But when we look in the used market, this phone becomes very interesting. eBay has become a joke, allowing people to sell products as used, even though they're physically cracked, or some screens don't even work. However, it is possible to find this phone under $500 in good condition, something that doesn't happen with the Z Fold 3 yet, and especially the Z Fold 4. So let's say at about $400, this is going to be better than any new phone that you can buy for $400 or more. The Nothing phone is cool, but the Fold 2 beats the phone in every way besides macro mode and obviously lighting. Even going to $450, I would take this over a Pixel 6a. The Samsung Z Fold 2 is just a phone that turns into a tablet filled with gimmicks. It has its shortcomings and loves to randomly break the inside screen, obviously if you don't take care of it. But when it's working fine, as in you replace the included screen protector and you actually take care of your purchase, you start to understand why this is superior over the flip style. And that's my review of the Samsung Z Fold 2, the old Fold that is worth the hold. Yeah, I don't know what that was. But what do you think? Is the Fold style dumb, or is there some truth to what I've been saying? Let me know in the comments, and as always, thanks for watching.